Hey guys, Sean Pruitt here. Happy Friday. Today's Casual Friday. I don't dress up nice on Fridays. Um, a lot of people are wondering what the hell's going on in the oil markets. Well, Iran has been trying to suck us into a battle, and it hasn't worked for them. Iran dropped bombs in Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iran, OPEC, they were all hoping oil prices went up to 100-something a barrel. Now, the reason why I know this, history repeats itself. You follow the money, okay? They don't produce oil just to produce oil. They're doing it for the money. They love money more than anything, okay? OPEC loves money more than anything. It's where they get their power, control, and without it, they're nothing, okay? Right now, Saudi Arabia's economy it cannot last much longer with these current oil prices. I'm not going to sit here and explain all the details to you, but all the money that they have made by becoming the richest oil country in the world, it is drying up faster than you can believe. In order for them to break even this year, oil prices need to be $80 a barrel. That means they're losing money right now. Not only are they losing money, they're also losing market share right now. And so they're seeing their oil power dissipating. 90% of their GDP is oil. Iran, same thing. OPEC, same thing. Russia, 60% of their GDP is oil. So what do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to sit back? Now, here's something you guys have to understand. They have been manipulating oil prices for a long time. That's the only way they know to increase oil prices. They control supply and demand, and they control oil prices. For the first time, because of Donald Trump, they cannot control oil prices. We're taking over market share, and we're keeping oil prices low. Why? It is to keep the money out of the wrong hands. Every single war that broke out in the Middle East was funded by oil and oil alone. Now, I was reading an article today. Goldman Sachs sees opportunity right now in the shale crisis. Shale oil here in the U.S., we went from producing 6 million barrels a day to producing 15 million. Okay, that's almost an extra 10 million barrels of oil a day because of shale alone. Problem with shale is it's very expensive because you need fracking technology in order to extract it. And then on top of that, you need, and on top of that, the decline curve is much higher. Because if you're going to manipulate oil to get it out of a shale that was never intended to extract oil, it will return back to what the original porosity was over time. So you frack the hell out of it, and then you produce as much oil as you can, and all of a sudden, it drops down to those low numbers again. So the decline curve is massive versus a conventional oil well that is sustainable. It could produce like that for 20, 30 years, but shale, it might produce for 2 or 3 years, and then it goes back to what she originally intended, which is nothing. And so they could either spend another $5 million and go back and recomplete the well, or they just let it sit there and dribble out. And so a lot of these shale companies, I was reading here, the mountain of debt looms just over horizon, according to the Wall Street Journal. Between July 2019 and the end of the year, roughly $9 billion in debt was set to mature. However, between 2020 and 2022, a whopping $137 billion in shale debt matures. The fracking industry does not have a viable business model, according to analysis at the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis. And so what they're saying is they don't have a viable business model. The business model that they have in shale is, in order to maintain the output, they just keep drilling shale wells. Well, you can't take the profits from producing shale wells and put it into brand new shale wells, because there's not enough profitability. For every one well that you drill, in order to maintain that peak number, you have to have 3 or 4 wells that have been pumping for the last 2 years because the decline curve is massive. So it comes online strong and then it declines. There's no clear objective. It's just drill like crazy and hope we find a new technology or a new discovery to help us with this shale problem. Look, they never intended on shale taking over. They never intended for shale to replace conventional oil wells. Shale was just, hey, there's no other place to really develop right now. Let's give the Shale Game a whirl. And then it exploded with no plans of it ever even considering replacing oil. See, so we're in for a massive decline. The hens have come home to roost, or the roosters, whatever that saying is. Sorry, guys. The debt is escalating in the shale game, and the longer oil prices are low, the more shale companies are going to go out of business. Goldman Sachs says the current down market represents a buying opportunity. Through August of this year, more than 190 shale companies have declared bankruptcy since 2015, according to Haynes and Boone LLP. So bottom line here, guys, oil prices have been low for a long time. Shale companies are going out of business. Developing shale wells is declining massively. The decline curve, the daily output of oil is declining quickly as well. So our output is dropping tremendously. And so right now it's cheap to buy leases. It's cheaper to drill. So you get in now, and as oil decline curve increases, as less wells are being drilled, oil output is going to drop tremendously. And of course, when supply goes down and demand goes up, what do you have? And so oil prices are going to go up with that. Okay, that's number one. Okay, shale is a flash in the pan. It's not going to last. And Goldman Sachs is saying it's a buying opportunity. That's number one. Number two, Saudi Arabia is going to do whatever it takes to increase oil prices. They're sitting on one of the largest pre-IPOs in the world. Saudi Aramco has a stock that is worth, and they just put a small percentage of their oil holdings onto the stock exchange, and it could be worth upwards of $2 trillion. They are having a hell of a time raising money for that thing. It should have been easy. But the problem is oil prices are low. Their country's unstable. And oil they're not even profiting right now. So nobody in their right mind is really going to dump a bunch of money in this thing. So Saudi Arabia is going to do whatever it takes to increase oil prices. Whatever it takes. They only know to manipulate oil prices. They only know to manipulate supply and demand. And in the past, they cut back on production. But now when they cut back on production, oil prices remain the same because we are filling those orders that they normally would be filling. And so we're taking market share. The U.S. is taking over. We're taking market share, and there's nothing they could do about it. So the only other option is dropping bombs on key oil fields. Russia, Saudi Arabia, OPEC, Iran, they all know this. That's why Iran keeps trying to draw us into a war. If America made a deal with Saudi Arabia, a deal that made our currency the most powerful currency in the world, it's called the petrodollar. We made a deal with Saudi Arabia that if they would sell their oil in our currency, we will protect their assets. So we worked closely with Saudi Arabia to protect their oil wells. And they sold our oil in U.S. currency. And that currency, every time Russia, Saudi Arabia, every China, India would buy a barrel of oil, they had to do it in U.S. currency, making our currency the most powerful currency in the world. We have central banking systems in every country except for North Korea and Cuba. 95% of the transactions are done in our currency. So that made our currency the most powerful currency in the world. Now we don't need Saudi Arabia anymore because our currency is already powerful. Nobody's going to use any other currency to replace us. I mean, at least for now. And we produce more oil than Saudi Arabia. We produce more oil than Russia. We don't need them anymore. These guys are falling apart. Their economy was based upon the relationship with America. Now we cut them off. Now we are still allies, but we haven't even sent in military aid to go out against Iran. They were expecting it. It didn't happen. And so Russia's sitting there like, America is pulling out and they're not even really doing anything. Iran's thinking, man, the Bushes would have sent tanks in by now. So here's my point. If there are some dirty politicians in America that did a deal with Saudi Arabia and wrote things into law to protect that relationship, making Saudi Arabia one of the richest countries in the world, funding terrorism, how much more would Iran not make a deal with somebody like Saudi Arabia, Russia, somebody, to try to draw America into a war to make Saudi Arabia, Russia, Kuwait, Iran, every country in the Middle East richer, because all they do is make money from oil. 8% of our GDP is oil. 90% of their GDP is oil. You guys not see the big picture here? Oil is king to these guys. Without it, they're going to starve. America is starving the very thing that funds all of the terror in the Middle East. Everything. You take oil away from Russia, what do they have? 40% of their GDP? I mean, they're already faltering as it is. You take away Saudi Arabia's oil, 90% of their GDP is gone. If we keep oil prices as low as they are, they're not profiting right now, but if we keep them as low as they are right now, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Kuwait, all of those countries overseas are going to fall. And so my point is that something is going to happen. Russia is not going to allow it. Saudi Arabia is not going to allow this. Iran is not going to allow this. They're going to do something hastily because it's either, oh, hey, let's let our country fall, or we could do something about it. And they've always manipulated oil prices. They have always done something to viciously increase oil prices. So Shale is falling apart, which is going to cause a higher demand. Less oil, higher demand. And so in Saudi Arabia, it's not going to allow their country to go into default and lose everything. So I don't know what's going to happen in the short term, but I'm telling you right now is the time to get involved with oil. Oil prices are low. Lease acquisitions are low. Drilling right now the activity is dropping tremendously. And so it's causing people to be more willing to work with you and drill at cheaper rates. So everything's much cheaper right now. Good time to get involved in oil and gas. And on top of that, we know oil prices are going to go up. And if you don't believe the demand for oil is going to increase, and then you're believing the left side, if you're a liberal or you're a Democrat, no offense, but a lot of the things that you're hearing in the news, and I think most Democrats would agree, most of it is garbage, and it's not even remotely true. People are saying the economy is falling apart. Our economy is as strong as it's ever been. Our workforce is strong as it's ever been. And so CNN could get on there and say certain things, but it's not even true. I've been following oil since over the last 25 years, since 94. And one thing I've learned about the news is that they don't know what they're talking about. You really need to follow the experts. There's some really intelligent guys out there that really know what they're talking about. But at the end of the day, oil is the most important commodity in the world. It's what fuels all of our vehicles. It's what gives energy to our homes. It's what fuels wars. Without it, we would be dead in the water. There are so many byproducts to oil. Our airplanes, plastics. There's so many applications to oil that you have no idea. Cars are one part of that whole application, the byproduct of oil. It's going to take 30, 40 years to replace oil. And are they going to replace it? I don't know. But oil is a non-renewable substance. There's whatever is in the ground. We're not going to create any more of it. Okay. So, all right, guys. Happy Friday. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to call me. My office number is 307-622-1645. Once again, that's 307-622-1-OIL. Thanks.